Chapter 1: The Matchmaker's Missteps. In the charming village of Highbury, nestled in the picturesque English countryside, the young and vivacious Emma Woodhouse lived a life of comfort and privilege. She resided at Hartfield, the family estate, with her indulgent father, Mr. Woodhouse, who doted on her and seldom questioned her decisions. Emma was intelligent, beautiful, and wealthy, qualities that made her the reigning queen of Highbury society. Her confidence was further bolstered by a recent triumph, the successful marriage of her dear friend and former governess, Miss Taylor, to Mr. Weston. This union, which she had subtly facilitated, filled Emma with a sense of pride and reinforced her belief in her own matchmaking abilities. Miss Taylor, now Mrs. Weston, had been a cherished companion and guide to Emma for 16 years, and her departure to Randalls, Mr. Weston's estate, left a significant void in Emma's life. Seeking to fill this gap, Emma turned her attention to Harriet Smith, a sweet but naive girl of unknown parentage who was a boarder at Mrs. Goddard's school. Harriet's agreeable nature and lack of sophistication made her an ideal candidate for Emma's next matchmaking endeavor. Emma, buoyed by her recent success, was determined to find Harriet a suitable match. She envisioned herself as a benevolent orchestrator of romantic unions, believing she had a natural talent for discerning suitable partners. However, her well-meaning but misguided efforts were often met with skepticism by her neighbor and family friend, Mr. George Knightley. Mr. Knightley, a man of integrity and sound judgment, had known Emma all her life and felt a brotherly concern for her. He frequently cautioned her against meddling in the lives of others, but Emma, confident in her abilities, paid little heed to his advice. The first significant challenge to Emma's matchmaking prowess came in the form of Robert Martin, a respectable and hard-working farmer who had developed a genuine affection for Harriet. Despite his humble background, Robert Martin was a man of good character and steady prospects. He proposed to Harriet, who, though flattered and inclined to accept, sought Emma's counsel. Emma, believing Robert Martin to be beneath Harriet's newfound social standing, advised her to decline the proposal. She argued that Harriet's charms and potential deserved a more refined and socially advantageous match. With Robert Martin out of the picture, Emma set her sights on Mr. Philip Elton, the village vicar. Mr. Elton was handsome, well-spoken, and held a respectable position in society, making him, in Emma's eyes, a perfect match for Harriet. Emma's conviction in this pairing was so strong that she began to orchestrate situations to bring Harriet and Mr. Elton together. She invited them both to Hartfield, arranged for them to meet at social gatherings, and subtly encouraged Harriet to think favorably of him. Emma's efforts were not without effect. Harriet, impressionable and eager to please, began to develop a fondness for Mr. Elton, encouraged by Emma's enthusiastic endorsement. However, Emma was oblivious to Mr. Elton's true feelings and intentions. While she perceived his attentiveness and frequent visits as signs of growing affection for Harriet, Mr. Elton had, in fact, set his sights on Emma herself. He viewed Emma as a far more desirable match, given her wealth and social standing. One winter evening, the Westons hosted a Christmas party at their home, Randalls. It was an elegant affair, filled with the warmth and cheer of the season. Emma and Mr. Elton found themselves in a carriage together, returning from the party. It was in this private setting that Mr. Elton, emboldened by the festive atmosphere and perhaps a bit too much wine, chose to reveal his true feelings. He passionately declared his love for Emma and proposed marriage, leaving her stunned and mortified. Emma, who had been completely unaware of his affections for her, rejected him with a mixture of surprise and indignation. The revelation of Mr. Elton's true intentions was a significant blow to Emma's confidence. She realized, to her dismay, that she had grossly misinterpreted his actions and had unintentionally misled Harriet. Emma's sense of guilt and responsibility was profound. She had persuaded Harriet to refuse a sincere and suitable proposal from Robert Martin, only to direct her hopes towards a man who had no interest in her. As Mr. Elton hastily left Highbury for a sojourn in Bath, Emma was left to face the consequences of her actions. Harriet was heartbroken, and Emma's confidence in her matchmaking abilities was deeply shaken. Mr. Knightley, who had warned her against such meddling, offered both a reprimand and a source of comfort. He expressed his disappointment in her interference, but also provided a compassionate ear and wise counsel, urging her to reflect on the impact of her actions. Emma, humbled by the experience, began to understand the complexities of human relationships and the dangers of overconfidence. She vowed to be more cautious and considerate in the future, resolving to give up her role as a matchmaker. However, her resolution would soon be tested as new challenges and romantic intrigues emerged in the village of Highbury, further complicating her journey towards self-awareness and personal growth. Chapter 2: Revelations and Regrets. The festive season had cast a warm glow over the village of Highbury, culminating in a splendid Christmas party hosted by Mr. and Mrs. Weston at Randall's. The gathering was a highlight of the social calendar, drawing together friends and neighbors in an atmosphere of celebration and goodwill. Emma Woodhouse, despite her recent misstep with Mr. Elton, attended the event with her usual confidence, believing that the evening would further cement her social influence. The party was a lively affair, with music, dancing, and a lavish feast that delighted all the guests. Emma, ever the social butterfly, mingled effortlessly, her charm and beauty capturing the attention of many. She kept a close eye on Harriet Smith, hoping to lift her spirits after the recent disappointment with Mr. Elton. However, Emma's attention was soon diverted by Mr. Elton himself, who seemed unusually attentive and eager for a private conversation. As the evening drew to a close, a light snow began to fall, adding a touch of magic to the night. The guests, bundled up in their cloaks and coats, prepared to leave. Emma found herself sharing a carriage with Mr. Elton, a situation she had orchestrated, hoping to discuss his feelings for Harriet. Little did she know that this ride would bring her plans crashing down. In the enclosed space of the carriage, Mr. Elton, emboldened by the intimacy of the setting and perhaps the warmth of the evening's revelry, chose this moment to reveal his true feelings. He declared his love for Emma in passionate terms, expressing his admiration for her beauty, intelligence, and social standing. Emma was stunned, her confidence shattered by this unexpected confession. She had been utterly convinced that Mr. Elton was interested in Harriet, and this revelation exposed the depth of her misjudgment. Emma gently but firmly rejected Mr. Elton's proposal, explaining that she had never considered him in a romantic light and that his affections were entirely misplaced. Mr. Elton, humiliated and crestfallen, reacted with a mixture of anger and disbelief. He had misinterpreted Emma's encouragement as a sign of her own interest, and now faced the bitter reality of rejection. The carriage ride back to Hartfield was fraught with tension, the festive spirit of the evening evaporating into awkward silence. The next day, news spread quickly that Mr. Elton had left Highbury for a stay in Bath. His sudden departure was a relief to Emma, who dreaded facing him after the uncomfortable encounter. However, her relief was tempered by the realization of the harm she had caused Harriet. Harriet, who had been led to believe that Mr. Elton might propose to her, was devastated. Emma's sense of guilt and responsibility weighed heavily on her, as she had not only misread Mr. Elton's intentions but also influenced Harriet to reject a sincere and suitable proposal from Robert Martin. Emma's troubles were compounded when news arrived from Bath. Mr. Elton had become engaged to a wealthy and pretentious woman named Augusta Hawkins. The announcement of their engagement was met with mixed reactions in Highbury. While some were pleased for Mr. Elton, others, including Emma, saw the match as an unflattering reflection on his character. Augusta Hawkins, though rich, was known for her ostentatious manner and lack of genuine warmth. Emma couldn't help but feel a pang of regret and frustration at the turn of events, recognizing the superficial nature of Mr. Elton's choice. In the wake of these revelations, Emma vowed to abandon her matchmaking efforts. She realized that her well-meaning interference had caused more harm than good and resolved to focus on her own growth and the well-being of her friends. Her relationship with Harriet was strained, as Emma struggled to mend the trust that had been broken. Harriet, though heartbroken, remained loyal to Emma, but the innocence of their friendship had been irrevocably altered. Just as Emma began to settle into this new resolution, the arrival of two new visitors to Highbury promised to stir the social waters once more. Jane Fairfax, a beautiful and accomplished young woman, returned to Highbury to stay with her aunt, Miss Bates. Jane was everything Emma was not: reserved, modest, and exceedingly talented. Her arrival was met with great interest, and Emma, though outwardly polite, felt an uncharacteristic pang of jealousy and insecurity. Jane's presence challenged Emma's position as the village's leading lady, and her mysterious background added to the intrigue. Simultaneously, Frank Churchill, the charming and enigmatic son of Mr. Weston from his first marriage, arrived in Highbury for an extended visit. Frank's arrival had been eagerly anticipated by many, including Emma, who was curious about the young man she had heard so much about. Frank was immediately captivating, with his easy manners, good looks, and engaging conversation. He brought a breath of fresh air to the village, and Emma found herself increasingly drawn to his charisma. Frank and Emma quickly formed a playful and flirtatious rapport, delighting in each other's company. Despite her recent vow to avoid matchmaking, Emma could not help but speculate about Frank's potential as a suitor, either for herself or for Harriet. Frank's attentions were flattering, and Emma enjoyed the excitement of their growing friendship. However, she remained wary, remembering the lessons she had learned from her experience with Mr. Elton. As the dynamics in Highbury shifted with the arrivals of Jane Fairfax and Frank Churchill, Emma found herself once again entangled in the complexities of social relationships and romantic possibilities. Her journey of self-discovery and personal growth was far from over, and the revelations and regrets of the past continued to shape her path. Emma's resolution to avoid matchmaking would be tested, and she would need to navigate the delicate balance between her desires, her friendships, and her sense of responsibility. The stage was set for a series of events that would challenge Emma's understanding of herself and those around her, leading her towards greater maturity and a deeper appreciation of the true nature of love and companionship. Chapter 3: New Intrigues. The arrival of Frank Churchill brought a fresh wave of excitement to Highbury. His presence was like a gust of wind sweeping through the village, invigorating the social scene and captivating the hearts of many, including Emma Woodhouse. Frank, with his easy charm, handsome features, and engaging manner, quickly became the center of attention. His lively conversation and playful demeanor made him a favorite among the residents of Highbury, and Emma found herself intrigued by his personality and intrigued by his mystery. Emma, still chastened by her recent misadventures in matchmaking, initially viewed Frank with a mix of curiosity and caution. Despite her resolve to avoid further interference in others' romantic lives, she couldn't help but wonder about his potential as a match for Harriet Smith. Harriet, still recovering from her disappointment with Mr. Elton, seemed to find solace in Frank's amiable presence. Emma, ever the orchestrator, subtly encouraged Harriet's admiration, imagining that Frank's charm and good looks might be just the antidote to Harriet's heartache. While Emma entertained these thoughts, she couldn't entirely dismiss her own feelings for Frank. His flirtatious behavior and attentive manner often left her flustered and confused. At times, Frank would shower Emma with attention, engaging her in lively conversation, complimenting her wit and beauty, and seeking her company at every opportunity. These moments made Emma feel special and admired, stirring emotions she hadn't anticipated. Yet, just as often, Frank would appear distant or preoccupied, leaving Emma to wonder about his true intentions. Despite her growing fondness for Frank, Emma remained guarded. She was determined not to let her heart be easily swayed, mindful of the lessons learned from her previous errors. She rationalized that her interest in Frank was purely intellectual and that any romantic inclinations were merely the result of his magnetic personality. Her thoughts often drifted to Harriet, whom she believed would be a more suitable match for Frank. Emma's meddling, though more subdued, continued to shape her interactions with both Frank and Harriet. In the midst of this, the presence of Jane Fairfax added another layer of complexity to Emma's emotions. Jane, with her quiet elegance and accomplished demeanor, was a stark contrast to Emma's own vivacious and confident personality. Jane's return to Highbury had been met with great interest and curiosity. She was the niece of Miss Bates, a talkative and somewhat tiresome woman, but Jane herself was reserved and mysterious. Her beauty and talents, particularly her musical skills, were the subject of much admiration. Emma found herself feeling a mix of curiosity and jealousy towards Jane. The attention Jane received from Mr. Knightley, in particular, stirred feelings of unease in Emma. Mr. Knightley had always been a guiding figure in Emma's life, his opinions and judgments holding significant weight. Seeing him take a keen interest in Jane's welfare and character sparked an unfamiliar sense of rivalry in Emma. She questioned whether her feelings stemmed from genuine concern for Mr. Knightley's happiness or from a deeper, more personal sentiment she was reluctant to acknowledge. As the days passed, Emma's imagination ran wild with possibilities. She speculated about Jane's past, her connections, and her future prospects. Emma's mind conjured various scenarios, each more elaborate than the last, as she tried to piece together the enigma that was Jane Fairfax. At the same time, she couldn't ignore the mixed signals she received from Frank Churchill. His behavior baffled her. One moment he was utterly attentive, the next he seemed indifferent. This inconsistency kept Emma on edge, her emotions a whirlwind of anticipation and doubt. One particularly memorable incident occurred during a visit to Donwell Abbey, Mr. Knightley's estate. The occasion was a strawberry picking party, a delightful summer event that brought together many of Highbury's residents. The idyllic setting, with its sprawling gardens and abundant strawberry patches, provided the perfect backdrop for social interaction. Emma found herself in the company of both Frank and Jane, their presence intensifying her conflicting emotions. As the group dispersed to gather strawberries, Frank and Emma found themselves walking together. Frank's charm was in full display, his conversation light and engaging. He picked the ripest strawberries for Emma, making a playful show of his attentions. Emma, caught up in the moment, couldn't help but feel a flutter of excitement. Yet, just as she began to entertain the notion that Frank's affections might be sincere, he abruptly shifted his focus, joining another group and leaving Emma feeling puzzled and slightly hurt. The day's events were further complicated by a brief but telling interaction between Jane Fairfax and Mr. Knightley. Emma observed them from a distance, noting the ease and familiarity in their conversation. Mr. Knightley, always composed and reserved, seemed particularly animated in Jane's company. Emma's jealousy flared, though she struggled to understand its root. Was it concern for Mr. Knightley's well-being or a more personal fear of losing his regard? In the days following the strawberry picking party, Emma's thoughts were consumed by the complexities of her feelings. She analyzed every interaction with Frank, every look and word, trying to discern his true intentions. Simultaneously, she couldn't shake her curiosity about Jane Fairfax and her relationship with Mr. Knightley. Emma's attempts to focus on Harriet and her potential match with Frank were frequently interrupted by her own emotional turmoil. Despite the confusion, Emma maintained her outward composure, navigating the social intricacies of Highbury with her usual grace. She continued to engage with Frank, enjoying his company while remaining wary of his inconsistencies. Her interactions with Jane were marked by a careful politeness, masking the underlying tension she felt. Emma's conversations with Mr. Knightley, though still warm and familiar, carried an unspoken undercurrent of her unacknowledged feelings. As the summer progressed, the interplay of these relationships grew more intricate. Emma's meddling, though more subdued, persisted as she encouraged Harriet to spend time with Frank and subtly guided their interactions. Frank's behavior remained enigmatic, his flirtations with Emma counterbalanced by periods of aloofness. Jane Fairfax's quiet presence continued to evoke a mix of admiration and jealousy in Emma, particularly in light of Mr. Knightley's apparent interest in her. Emma's journey through these new intrigues was a testament to her evolving understanding of herself and her relationships. The lessons she had learned from her previous mistakes were tempered by the complexities of human emotions and the unpredictability of romantic entanglements. As she navigated the tangled web of affection, friendship, and rivalry, Emma began to glimpse the deeper truths about love and companionship, setting the stage for further revelations and personal growth. Chapter 4: Secrets Unveiled. As the summer in Highbury progressed, the social atmosphere grew increasingly vibrant with gatherings and visits, allowing Emma Woodhouse to observe more closely the interactions of those around her. Emma's own feelings were a complex mix, oscillating between intrigue and confusion regarding Frank Churchill, and a simmering jealousy and curiosity about Jane Fairfax. The seemingly carefree flirtations between herself and Frank were a source of amusement and mild vexation, but they also served to distract her from deeper introspection. During this period, Harriet Smith, ever impressionable and guided by Emma's opinions, developed a growing affection for Frank Churchill. Harriet's infatuation was clear in her eager anticipation of Frank's visits and her delight in his attention. Emma, observing this, felt a twinge of concern but also a sense of validation in her initial matchmaking instincts. She began to entertain the idea that perhaps Frank and Harriet could indeed make a suitable pair, despite the ambiguities in Frank's behavior. However, beneath the surface, a significant secret loomed. Frank Churchill and Jane Fairfax were engaged, a fact known only to themselves. Their engagement was shrouded in secrecy due to various familial and social pressures, particularly from Frank's formidable aunt, Mrs. Churchill, who disapproved of the match. The clandestine nature of their relationship added layers of tension and complexity to their interactions with the other residents of Highbury. The revelation of this secret was set in motion during a grand gathering at Donwell Abbey, the estate of Mr. Knightley. The occasion was another of Mr. Knightley's attempts to foster community spirit and enjoyment among his friends and neighbours. The expansive grounds of Donwell Abbey provided a picturesque setting for the gathering, with its rolling lawns, lush gardens, and the stately manor house exuding an air of timeless elegance. As guests arrived, the atmosphere was one of relaxed enjoyment, with groups dispersing across the estate to explore, converse, and partake in various activities. Emma, in her role as socialite and observer, moved among the guests, her sharp eyes and keen mind noting the subtleties of their interactions. Frank Churchill and Jane Fairfax were both present, their behaviour as enigmatic as ever. Frank's attention seemed divided, with moments of charm directed towards Emma and others where he appeared preoccupied or distant. Emma found herself drawn into a conversation with Mr. Knightley, whose steady presence and insightful observations provided a counterbalance to the whirlwind of emotions and speculation swirling within her. As they walked through the garden, Mr. Knightley expressed his concerns about the potential consequences of Frank's ambiguous behaviour and the impact it might have on Harriet. Emma, though defensive at first, gradually began to see the wisdom in Mr. Knightley's words, recognizing the precariousness of encouraging Harriet's hopes without clear indications of Frank's intentions. The pivotal moment of the day came unexpectedly. In a secluded part of the garden, Emma stumbled upon a conversation between Frank Churchill and Jane Fairfax that was unmistakably intimate and revealing. Their words, though not intended for her ears, conveyed the depth of their connection and the reality of their secret engagement. Emma, hidden from their view, was stunned by the realization. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place, explaining Frank's inconsistent behavior and Jane's reserved demeanor. Emma's immediate reaction was a mix of shock, relief, and disappointment. The relief stemmed from the understanding that she had never been truly in love with Frank. Her feelings for him were more rooted in the excitement of flirtation and the allure of his charm. The disappointment, however, was twofold. She felt deceived by Frank's pretense and saddened for Harriet, whose affections for Frank were genuine and heartfelt. As the gathering at Donwell Abbey continued, the news of Frank and Jane's engagement began to circulate, each retelling colored by varying degrees of shock and speculation. Highbury was abuzz with the revelation, and the reactions were diverse. Some were scandalized by the secrecy, others sympathetic to the couple's predicament, and many curious about the implications for their own social dynamics. Harriet, upon learning of the engagement, was devastated. Her heart, already bruised by previous disappointments, seemed to break anew. She turned to Emma for comfort and guidance, her trust in Emma's wisdom and friendship unwavering despite past missteps. Emma, deeply moved by Harriet's pain and the realization of her own culpability, offered her heartfelt support and consolation. This period of reflection was a turning point for Emma. She began to scrutinize her past actions and their ramifications with newfound clarity and humility. The experiences with Mr. Elton, Frank Churchill, and Harriet's heartaches forced Emma to confront the consequences of her meddling and the limitations of her judgment. Her conversations with Mr. Knightley, who had consistently urged her towards greater self-awareness and responsibility, took on a deeper resonance as she grappled with her mistakes. Emma's introspection led her to a profound understanding of the complexities of human relationships and the importance of genuine empathy. She realized that her attempts at matchmaking, though well-intentioned, had often been driven by a desire for control and validation rather than a true consideration of others' feelings and needs. This insight marked a significant shift in her character, fostering a sense of maturity and a commitment to fostering sincere connections rather than orchestrating outcomes. The days following the gathering at Donwell Abbey saw Emma and Harriet spending more time together, their bond strengthened by shared confidences and mutual support. Emma's resolve to be a better friend and a more considerate person was bolstered by her love for Harriet and her desire to see her happy and secure. She encouraged Harriet to focus on her own growth and happiness, rather than becoming entangled in romantic fantasies. Meanwhile, the dynamic between Emma and Mr. Knightley also evolved. Emma's newfound humility and self-awareness brought a deeper respect and appreciation for Mr. Knightley's steadfastness and integrity. Their conversations, once marked by gentle admonishments and playful banter, now carried a deeper understanding and mutual regard. Emma began to see Mr. Knightley not just as a friend and mentor, but as someone whose opinions and feelings mattered profoundly to her. As Emma navigated this period of personal growth and reflection, the village of Highbury adjusted to the news of Frank and Jane's engagement. The couple, freed from the burden of secrecy, began to interact more openly, earning the respect and goodwill of their neighbors. The lessons Emma learned from this experience resonated throughout her social interactions, guiding her towards a more authentic and compassionate way of engaging with those around her. In the midst of these changes, Emma's journey towards self-discovery continued, shaped by the revelations and regrets of the past and the hope for a wiser and more considerate future. The intricate tapestry of Highbury's social life, with its interwoven threads of friendship, love, and personal growth, provided the backdrop for Emma's transformation and the unfolding of her true potential. Chapter 5: True Feelings. As the dust settled in Highbury after the revelation of Frank Churchill and Jane Fairfax's secret engagement, Emma Woodhouse found herself increasingly introspective and contemplative. The upheavals of recent events had catalyzed a period of significant personal growth for her, and she began to see her world with a newfound clarity. Amidst the social turmoil and shifting dynamics, one relationship stood out with greater significance: her connection with Mr. Knightley. Emma and Mr. Knightley's interactions took on a deeper and more intimate tone. They spent more time together, their conversations evolving from the light-hearted and teasing exchanges of the past to more earnest and candid discussions. Mr. Knightley's presence, always a source of stability and wisdom, became even more meaningful to Emma as she navigated her changing perceptions and emotions. She found herself looking forward to their talks, cherishing the moments of insight and understanding they shared. It was during one of their walks through the serene landscapes of Donwell Abbey that Emma began to truly appreciate the depth of her feelings for Mr. Knightley. His gentle guidance and unwavering honesty had always been a counterbalance to her impulsiveness, and she now saw these qualities in a new light. Emma's heart warmed at his kindness and integrity, and she realized that her affection for him went far beyond mere friendship or respect. The seeds of love, which had long been sown, were now blossoming into full awareness. However, Emma's path to this realization was fraught with uncertainty. Mr. Knightley had often been critical of her behavior, pointing out her flaws with a frankness that sometimes stung. Emma worried that his disapproval might extend to her feelings, that he might see her affection as another misjudgment or folly. Her self-doubt, born from past errors and recent humbling experiences, made her hesitant to acknowledge her feelings even to herself. The situation became even more complicated when Harriet Smith, now more cautious and reflective after her experiences with Mr. Elton and Frank Churchill, confided in Emma that she had developed feelings for Mr. Knightley. Harriet's unexpected confession was a jolt to Emma's already tumultuous emotions. Harriet spoke with a sincerity that pierced Emma's heart, describing Mr. Knightley's kindness, his attention to her, and the admiration she felt for him. Harriet's revelation forced Emma to confront the full depth of her own emotions. She realized, with a pang of guilt and sorrow, that her feelings for Mr. Knightley were not just affectionate or admiring, but deeply and irrevocably rooted in love. The idea of Harriet aspiring to marry Mr. Knightley, and of Mr. Knightley perhaps reciprocating Harriet's feelings, filled Emma with a profound sense of loss and inner conflict. She was torn between her loyalty and love for Harriet, who had already suffered so much, and her own powerful desires. Emma's internal struggle was intense. She felt an acute sense of betrayal towards Harriet, yet she also recognized the integrity of her own feelings for Mr. Knightley. The thought of losing him to anyone, even someone as dear as Harriet, was unbearable. At the same time, Emma's sense of responsibility and care for Harriet's happiness made her reluctant to dismiss Harriet's feelings or to act selfishly. During this period of inner turmoil, Emma and Mr. Knightley continued to interact regularly. Mr. Knightley, perceptive as ever, sensed that something was troubling Emma. He noticed the changes in her demeanor, the moments of distraction, the unusual quietness, and the occasional flashes of melancholy. His concern for her well-being deepened, and he sought opportunities to offer support and comfort, though Emma, torn by her emotions, found it difficult to articulate the source of her distress. One evening, while visiting Hartfield, Mr. Knightley found Emma alone in the drawing-room, lost in thought. The warmth of the fire contrasted with the cool evening air, casting a soft glow across the room. Mr. Knightley, sensing a rare opportunity for a private conversation, approached Emma with his usual straightforwardness. "Emma, I have noticed that you seem troubled lately. Is there something on your mind that you would like to share?" Emma, caught off guard by his directness, felt a rush of emotions well up inside her. She struggled to find the right words, torn between the need to protect Harriet's confidences and the desire to express her own feelings. "Mr. Knightley," she began hesitantly, "I have been reflecting on many things lately. The events of the past months have given me much to think about." Mr. Knightley nodded, his gaze steady and reassuring. "I understand, Emma. It has been a challenging time for all of us. But you know you can always speak freely with me." His words, full of sincerity and concern, touched Emma deeply. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. "There are matters of the heart that have become quite complicated. I fear I have been blind to my own feelings and the feelings of others." Mr. Knightley's expression softened with understanding. "Emma, it is natural to feel confused at times. Matters of the heart are rarely simple. But remember, it is through these experiences that we grow and learn." Emma looked at him, her eyes reflecting a mix of hope and fear. "Mr. Knightley, have you ever found yourself caught between your own desires and the happiness of someone dear to you?" Mr. Knightley paused, considering her question carefully. "Yes, Emma. I believe everyone faces such dilemmas at some point. It is one of the many complexities of being human. But in those moments, it is essential to act with honesty and compassion. His words resonated with Emma, giving her a sense of clarity amidst her confusion. She realized that she needed to confront her feelings openly and honestly, both for her own sake and for Harriet's. The truth, however painful, was the only way forward. In the days that followed, Emma found herself in a delicate balancing act, trying to support Harriet while grappling with her own emotions. She decided to speak with Harriet openly, hoping to gently guide her towards a clearer understanding of the situation. Emma knew it was crucial to handle the conversation with care, to ensure that Harriet felt heard and valued. One afternoon, Emma and Harriet took a walk through the gardens of Hartfield. The blooming flowers and the warm sunlight provided a serene backdrop for the difficult conversation ahead. Emma turned to Harriet, her expression earnest. "Harriet, I need to talk to you about something important. It's about Mr. Knightley." Harriet looked at Emma with wide eyes, a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "Yes, Emma?" Emma took a deep breath, her heart pounding. "Harriet, you are very dear to me, and your happiness means a great deal. I know you have developed feelings for Mr. Knightley, and I want you to understand that your feelings are valid and important." Harriet's eyes filled with emotion. "Oh, Emma, I do care for him deeply. He has been so kind to me." Emma nodded, her voice gentle. "I understand, Harriet. Mr. Knightley is a remarkable man, and it's natural to feel affection for him. But there are things you should know. Mr. Knightley and I have a long history of friendship and mutual respect. My feelings for him have grown over time, and I realize now that I love him deeply." Harriet's expression shifted, a mixture of surprise and sorrow crossing her face. "Emma, I didn't know. I had no idea." Emma reached out, taking Harriet's hands in hers. "Harriet, I am so sorry if my feelings have caused you pain or confusion. I want us to be honest with each other and to support one another, no matter what happens." Harriet's eyes glistened with tears, but she nodded. "Emma, you have always been my guide and my friend. I trust you, and I believe that whatever happens, we will find a way to be happy." The conversation, though difficult, brought a sense of resolution. Emma and Harriet's bond, tested by the complexities of love and friendship, emerged stronger and more resilient. Emma felt a weight lifted from her shoulders, knowing that she had been honest with Harriet and with herself. Meanwhile, Mr. Knightley, unaware of the full extent of Emma's and Harriet's emotional struggles, continued to be a steady presence in Emma's life. His concern for her well-being and his respect for her growth and introspection deepened his affection for her. He admired the changes he saw in Emma, recognizing her increasing maturity and empathy. One evening, as the sun set over Highbury, casting a golden glow over the landscape, Mr. Knightley arrived at Hartfield with a determined resolve. He found Emma in the garden, lost in thought. The sight of her, bathed in the warm light, filled him with a profound sense of love and admiration. "Emma," he called softly, approaching her. She turned, her heart skipping a beat at the sight of him. "Mr. Knightley, what a pleasant surprise." He smiled, his eyes reflecting his deep feelings. "Emma, there is something I need to tell you." Emma's pulse quickened, sensing the significance of his words. "What is it, Mr. Knightley?" He stepped closer, taking her hands in his. "Emma, I have always cared for you deeply. Our friendship has been one of the most important parts of my life. But over time, I have come to realize that my feelings for you go far beyond friendship. I love you, Emma, and I wish to spend my life with you." Emma's eyes filled with tears of joy and relief. The words she had longed to hear were finally spoken, and they filled her heart with overwhelming happiness. "Mr. Knightley, I love you too. I have loved you for longer than I realized, and nothing would make me happier than to be with you." Their mutual confession, made in the tranquil beauty of the garden, marked the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. Emma's journey of self-discovery, marked by mistakes, regrets, and moments of clarity, had led her to this moment of profound fulfillment. The love she and Mr. Knightley shared was built on a foundation of deep respect, understanding, and genuine affection. In the days that followed, the news of Emma and Mr. Knightley's engagement spread through Highbury, bringing joy to their friends and neighbours. Harriet, though initially saddened, found solace in Emma's happiness and began to look forward to her own future with hope and optimism. Emma, in turn, continued to support Harriet, ensuring that their friendship remained strong and meaningful. Emma's transformation was a testament to the power of love, honesty, and personal growth. She had navigated the complexities of her emotions and relationships with grace and resilience, emerging stronger and more compassionate. Her love for Mr. Knightley, grounded in mutual respect and deep understanding, promised a future of shared joy and unwavering support. As the seasons changed and the village of Highbury prepared for new beginnings, Emma and Mr. Knightley looked forward to their life together with a sense of excitement and contentment. Their journey, marked by trials and triumphs, was a testament to the enduring power of love and the beauty of personal growth. Chapter 6: The Happy Resolution. In the wake of the emotional revelations and newfound clarity of feelings, the village of Highbury found itself on the cusp of significant transformations. Emma Woodhouse, now fully aware of her love for Mr. Knightley, experienced a profound sense of joy and anticipation for the future. The journey to this realization had been fraught with challenges and self-reflection, but it had ultimately led to a deeper understanding of herself and her relationships. Mr. Knightley, having witnessed Emma's evolution and growth, decided it was time to declare his feelings. He had long admired her spirit, intelligence, and compassion, even as he guided her through her more misguided endeavors. Recognizing the strength and maturity she had developed, Mr. Knightley felt confident that the time had come to express the love he had harbored for so long. One serene afternoon, with the sun casting a golden hue over Hartfield, Mr. Knightley invited Emma for a walk in the gardens. The air was filled with the fragrant scent of blooming flowers, and the gentle rustle of leaves created a tranquil atmosphere. As they strolled together, their conversation flowed easily, reflecting the deep bond they shared. "Emma," Mr. Knightley began, his voice tinged with a mixture of earnestness and tenderness, "there is something important I need to say to you." Emma, sensing the gravity of his words, turned to him with an expectant look. "What is it, Mr. Knightley?" He paused, taking her hand in his and looking into her eyes with unwavering sincerity. "Emma, I have watched you grow and change, and I have come to realize that my feelings for you are not merely those of a friend or guardian. I love you, Emma. I have loved you for a long time, and I wish to spend the rest of my life with you." Emma's heart swelled with joy and relief. The words she had longed to hear filled her with a profound sense of happiness. Tears of joy glistened in her eyes as she replied, "Mr. Knightley, I love you too. I have loved you for longer than I knew, and nothing would make me happier than to be with you." With their mutual confession, a new chapter in their lives began. Their engagement brought immense joy to their families and friends, who celebrated the union of two people whose love was grounded in deep respect and understanding. The news spread quickly through Highbury, filling the village with a palpable sense of excitement and happiness. As Emma and Mr. Knightley planned their future together, they were mindful of the need to make amends for past misunderstandings and missteps. Emma, in particular, was determined to address the repercussions of her previous actions and to ensure that her friends found happiness as well. Harriet Smith, who had confided her feelings for Mr. Knightley to Emma, took the news of their engagement with grace and understanding. Her initial disappointment gave way to a deeper reflection on her own feelings. She realized that her admiration for Mr. Knightley had been more about his kindness and support than true romantic love. This clarity allowed Harriet to open her heart to the possibility of reconciliation with Robert Martin. Robert Martin, ever patient and devoted, had never given up hope of winning Harriet's affection. When he heard of Harriet's new perspective and her softened feelings, he decided to propose once more. This time, Harriet, with a heart full of gratitude and love, accepted his proposal. Their union, marked by mutual respect and genuine affection, brought joy to both their families and friends. The dual engagements of Emma and Mr. Knightley and Harriet and Robert Martin transformed Highbury into a hub of celebration and anticipation. The village, always vibrant and close-knit, now buzzed with preparations for the upcoming weddings. Friends and neighbors came together to share in the joy, their spirits lifted by the prospect of new beginnings and enduring love. Emma, having learned valuable lessons about humility, empathy, and the importance of considering others' feelings, approached her future with a renewed sense of purpose. She recognized the significance of her relationships and the profound impact of her actions on those around her. This awareness guided her interactions, fostering a deeper sense of connection and understanding within her community. As the wedding day approached, the preparations at Hartfield and Donwell Abbey were marked by a sense of joy and cooperation. The families and friends of the two couples worked together to create celebrations that reflected the unique personalities and values of the brides and grooms. The gardens were adorned with flowers, the halls filled with laughter and music, and the air was thick with anticipation. On the day of the weddings, the village of Highbury gathered to witness the unions. The ceremony for Harriet and Robert Martin was held in the picturesque countryside, surrounded by the natural beauty that had been a backdrop to their love story. Harriet, radiant with happiness, walked down the aisle to meet Robert, her heart full of love and gratitude. Their vows, exchanged with heartfelt sincerity, marked the beginning of a life filled with mutual respect and shared dreams. Following Harriet and Robert's ceremony, the festivities moved to Hartfield, where Emma and Mr. Knightley were to be married. The stately manor, decorated with an elegant simplicity that reflected Emma's refined taste, was filled with the people who had shaped their lives and witnessed their journey. Emma, dressed in a gown that blended timeless beauty with modern elegance, felt a surge of emotion as she walked towards Mr. Knightley, the man who had been her steadfast friend and now her beloved partner. Their vows, spoken with deep emotion and commitment, resonated with the assembled guests. Mr. Knightley, his voice steady and filled with love, pledged to support and cherish Emma, recognizing the strength and wisdom she had gained. Emma, her eyes shining with tears of happiness, promised to honor and love Mr. Knightley, grateful for his unwavering presence in her life. The celebrations that followed were filled with joy and merriment. Friends and family gathered to toast the newlyweds, their laughter and congratulations echoing through the halls of Hartfield. The bonds of friendship and family were strengthened, and the village of Highbury rejoiced in the happiness of its beloved residents. Emma and Mr. Knightley, united by their shared experiences and deep affection, looked forward to a future of growth and genuine happiness. Their marriage was built on a foundation of mutual respect, understanding, and love, promising a life of shared joys and challenges. They were committed to supporting each other and contributing to the well-being of their community, their union serving as a testament to the transformative power of love and personal growth. Harriet and Robert Martin, equally joyous in their new life together, found fulfillment in their shared aspirations and mutual support. Their marriage, rooted in genuine affection and respect, was a source of inspiration and happiness for their friends and family. The village of Highbury, celebrating not just one but two happy unions, reflected the spirit of community and the enduring power of love. The lessons learned and the relationships forged through trials and triumphs enriched the lives of its residents, fostering a sense of belonging and mutual support. Emma Woodhouse, now Mrs. Knightley, looked forward to a life of continued growth and genuine happiness. Her journey, marked by mistakes and realizations, had led her to a place of profound fulfillment and love. With Mr. Knightley by her side, she embraced the future with optimism and joy, ready to face the challenges and celebrate the joys that lay ahead. As the sun set over Highbury, casting a golden glow over the village, Emma and Mr. Knightley stood together, hand in hand, looking out over the landscape that had witnessed their journey. The path ahead was filled with promise and possibility, and they faced it together, united in love and commitment. Their story, a testament to the power of personal growth and the enduring strength of true love, continued to unfold, bringing joy and inspiration to all who knew them.